All right. I'm going to do one thing. How cool is it to have Mike Rowe at CPAC? My favorite thing about this CPAC is usually we have a bunch of politicians and political people talking to us. This year, we just have Americans talking to us.
There you go.
Okay, so I don't want to dive into politics because that's not necessarily what you spend all your time on, but have you been pretty happy for the last 3 weeks?
I'm good, yeah. Look, first of all, sorry about the clothes. I didn't get the memo, and all my suits are rubber anyway, so I apologize for that. Secondly...
You look a little Bannon-esque here.
You know what?
If you don't have an overcoat on.
I was inspired by the Filson. I bid on it, but again, not high enough. Yeah, I'm super excited by what I've seen. And the reason I'm excited, and the lane that I spend most of my time in, is around workforce development.
Yep.
And I did this show called Dirty Jobs for a while, and back in 2008, a foundation began to take shape. You'll remember, we went into a recession back in '09, and at the same time, 12 million people were out of work. Something crazy started to happen in our country. There started to be reports on something called a skills gap. And it basically meant that even with 12 million people unemployed, there were 2.5 million jobs that were open that nobody seemed to want. And these were good jobs. Many paid 6 figures, but none of them required a 4-year degree. These were jobs: welding, steam fitting, pipe fitting, HVAC, electricians, right? The muscular trades. And those jobs really is why Dirty Jobs became a show. It's why Dirty Jobs is still on the air today. So long story.
How many years?
22 years the show's been in production.
Awesome.
And Deadliest Catch, too. Those 2 shows started at the same time. So I've been talking about crab fishing and crawling through sewers from sea to shining sea for the last 22 years. And the foundation that evolved out of that show has been around now 16 years. We started on Labor Day back in, I guess it was 2008. But here's the reason I'm here, honestly. We have been awarding work ethic scholarships for the last, 12 years, I suppose. And we're modest by foundation standards. We give away $2, maybe $3 million a year. These are not scholarships for kids who want to go to university or 4-year school. It's very, very specific. Plumbers, electricians, and so forth. Anyway, we're starting to move the needle. And by that, I mean, this skills gap thing is it's a problem. And it's about to be a problem for our president. And the reason I think is this: if he succeeds in bringing manufacturing...
It's really strange, because I always thought of Joe Biden as having a massive skill gap, but maybe I missed it somewhere along.
I'm not here to judge, but you know what?
Oh, judge a little bit.
All right, I'll judge a little. This odyssey started for me in 2009 with a very public, open letter. You can Google it, from me to Barack Obama. Some of you will remember the new president pledged 3 million shovel-ready jobs.
I remember that.
It's a big deal.
The highway bill and all this stuff.
All that. And I was rooting for him because I like the idea of somebody betting on the infrastructure, and those were jobs that I thought would really benefit a lot of people. But the big lesson from Dirty Jobs was, if you want to sell a shovel-ready job to a country, you better be talking to a country who's enthusiastic about picking up a shovel. If you're not, you're going to have a PR problem. So here's what's happening today. My little foundation launched in 2009. There were 2.3 million open jobs, open positions. The situation today, can I rant for a second?
Yeah, go, man. You can stand and scream.
I can stand up?
Yeah, you do whatever you want.
All right, look, I'm just going to get this out of my system. There's 7.6 million open jobs right now, most of which don't require a 4-year degree. Let that set in. 7.6 million open jobs right now that don't require a 4-year degree. $1.7 trillion in student loans is currently on the books. Most of that is held by people who are trying to pay off a 4-year degree, many of whom didn't get their degree but still got the debt. 1.7 trillion here, 7.6 million open jobs here. You can start to see the difference. Now you got another number, 7.2 million able-bodied men in the prime of their life who are not only not working, but who have affirmatively chosen to sit out. They're on the sidelines. If you want to read a book that'll scare the heck out of you, it's called Men Without Work by Nicholas Eberstadt, and it chronicles all of this in painstaking detail. Never before in peacetime have so many able-bodied men been sitting on their butts, affirmatively not looking for work. So you got 7.6 million open jobs, 7.2 million men who aren't looking for jobs, $1.7 trillion in student loans. And what are we doing, guys? We're lending money we don't have to kids who are never going to be able to pay it back, to train them for a bunch of jobs that don't exist anymore, while our president is going to try and bring manufacturing back into this country. And he very well might succeed. I hope he does. But when he does, the question nobody is asking and nobody is talking about is, where are the workers going to come from? We can talk about a skills gap, that's real, but it's the will gap that scares the hell out of me. This is happening. It's real. I'm going to sit down again because now I feel like a
I thought that
jackass
was
for
good.
standing up. Okay, but look, I got a phone call. It's just a quick story, and this will just put a point on it. I realize nobody wants a lecture, and nobody wants a sermon, and nobody wants their finger wagged. I get all that. But I got a call from an organization a few months ago called the Blue Forge Alliance. Most people have never heard of these guys, but they're in charge of something called the Maritime Industrial Base. This base is 15,000 independent companies who collectively are charged with building our nuclear-powered submarines. They need to deliver to the U.S. Navy 3 a year, a couple Columbia-class and a Virginia-class. That's the cadence, 3 a year for the next 10 years. These things, by the way, are unbelievable. They build them vertically like a building. They're taller than the Washington Monument. They're incredibly complicated. And if you're paying attention to the world, you know that if things go sideways with Taiwan and the missiles go hypersonic, our aircraft carriers are vulnerable like they've never been before. In other words, the pointy end of the stick are these submarines. Now, this guy calls me and he says, Mike, I've been looking at your foundation. I love what you're doing. The scholarship program is great. Can you help us? Can you help us hire some tradespeople? We're desperate, his words, desperate. And I said, well, how many do you need? So help me God. His answer was 100,000. Google it, Glenn, I wouldn't lie to you. 100,000 tradespeople for one organization that most of you have never heard of that are tasked. It's only a matter of national defense. And I said, 100,000, seriously? And he said, yeah, we've been looking everywhere. And then he said, do you know where they are? And I said, yeah, man, I know where they are. They're in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
They're in the 8th grade right now. So all of this is simply to say our country absolutely needs to make a more persuasive case for 7.6 million open jobs right now. I just talked to the guy that runs a giant automotive consortium. They're looking to hire 80,000 tradespeople now. They can't find them. The submarine guys can't find them. Talk to Ford, talk to Caterpillar, talk to Kimberly-Clark, talk to anybody in the Fortune 500 who relies on a skilled workforce. There is no greater cause in the country right now than the recruiting challenges that we're fighting against. Permission to keep lecturing?
Go, baby.
All right, look, it's math. It's math, right? 5 and 2. Every year, 5 skilled tradesmen leave the workforce and 2 replace them. It's been that way for 12 years. 5 leave, 2 come in. This is horrible arithmetic. It's what Abraham Lincoln called the terrible arithmetic of war, the reality of the fight that we're in. We're fighting a demographic problem, right? We're aging out of the workforce. How long do you want to wait for a plumber? How long do you wait for an electrician? How long do you want to wait for a skilled tradesman to come to your house? This is what's happening now. It's no longer a conversation between the companies who are desperate to hire them and the people who would benefit from being hired. The problem is the 330 million of us who share my addiction to chewing and swallowing and smooth roads and cool interiors, right? And indoor plumbing. This is the stuff. And it's been in front of us for a while, but now it's getting scary because those submarines need to be built. And the people who are doing it are looking at each other and saying, do you know where the workers are? And like a smart aleck, I did tell him in the 8th grade. Now, we've been in touch, and we're working on a lot of different projects. And what I'm going to say to you now, and I promise I'm not going to put the arm on anybody, but maybe I am a little. Because I was here yesterday. Elon was up here with his chainsaw. This is not the time for me to ask.
You know, I tried to get the chainsaw for us. You know, I tried to wrestle it from him.
You should have auctioned that off.
I know, I should. Please don't rub it in, Mike. Don't rub it in.
I was going to come out here with a weed whacker and a roto-rooter. We'll see what can happen. But here's what I think we need to do. I think we need to make a more persuasive case for the jobs that exist. I think we have to be honest with ourselves and admit it. In the long history of education in this country, the most harebrained thing to ever happen was the conscious decision to remove shop class from high school.
Yeah.
Can I stand up one more time? Guys, when we took shop class out of high school, we not only robbed an entire generation of the vocation that they were probably born to do, we removed from sight all the optical proof that these jobs even existed. So a regular kid walking from English down to math, right? Once upon a time, he could stick his head in metal shop or wood shop or auto shop and see something that looked like work being done. That doesn't happen anymore. I'll say to you now, in the remaining 2 minutes we have, unless you let me go long, I don't want to push, but I'm just saying, I can draw a pretty straight line to the day we took shop class out of high school, to the $1.7 trillion in student loans currently on the books, to the 7.6 million open jobs, and 7.2 million American men currently sitting on their ass, pardon me, not working. All of that is connected. It's all of a piece. How do you fix it? There's nothing you can do about the math. 5 leave, 2 come in. I don't know, make more babies. Get Elon Musk back out here. I think he could get another 14.
He's very good at it.
He'll close the skills gap himself at this point. The only other thing we can do is redefine the definition of a good job. And our teachers and our parents and all of us, people in industry, we have to make a more persuasive case for these jobs. We got to do. Can I get an amen? All right.
Those are our Australian friends, and they want America to get back to work.
They gave me a thing that said MAGA, Make Australia Great Again, and there might be a copyright infringement, but I like the way you think.
Can I ask you a question on this whole thing?
Yeah.
Is it a math problem or a moral problem?
It's not binary. It's all of it. We have sent a message for decades about the subordinate value of a skilled trade. One Day at a Time, you're old enough to remember that show.
Oh, yeah.
Schneider was the handyman. He was kind of an idiot. He was the brunt of all the jokes.
He had all the keys.
All the keys. Yeah, look, you think of a plumber in your mind's eye. He's 300 pounds with a giant butt crack, right? That's the way plumbers have been portrayed forever. There's stigmas and stereotypes and myths and misperceptions that have kept a whole generation of kids from exploring these careers. My foundation has helped 2,200 people so far learn a skill that's in demand. And if I had more time, and if I knew where I'd be sitting tonight, I would have brought you the video that shows these young men and women.
But why don't you come back next year?
I'll come back next. I'll come back tomorrow if you want me, although I know there's some other guys coming here tomorrow.
You know, he tends to go a little long.
You know what? Tell him I said hello, not to go off script.
Yeah.
But guys, I'm serious. No pressure. But if you like what we're up to, I'll tell you what I'm going to do this year. Because after 16 years, I can feel it tipping. There are a lot of cranky billionaires out in the country who have called me to say, I dig what you're screaming. How can we help? And the answer is not microworks.gov, and the answer is not a bunch of money from the feds. The answer is state by state. Kristi Noem's going to come out here. I met with her 3 months ago up in South Dakota. They're doing a great job with their vocational skills in that state. Please ask her about that because their story is great. Kelly Ayoade's going to kill it in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
The governors have a huge role to play in this, but so do the school districts, and so do moms and dads, and so do guidance counselors, many of whom are still bonused on their ability to get kids into a 4-year school. The whole thing is so backwards, it makes me kind of crazy because I've been looking at it for a long time, but I'm here to tell you, Matt, I don't want to scare anybody, but the chickens are going to come home to roost. And just because you create opportunity doesn't mean you're going to be able to fill it. I challenge any of you to find a new home construction project that's coming in on time and under budget. They're not. And the reason is a paucity of skilled labor. I don't want to rant anymore, but I do know that the solution is going to require a lot of different approaches. My approach is to simply tell the success stories that we have more broadly. Because if you guys see the 24-year-old who got an $8,000 work ethic scholarship and learned how to weld from our little foundation, and then 6 years later, when I say, hey, how's it going? And he says, I'll show you how it's going. He hired 5 of his friends, a plumber, an electrician, right, and a couple of HVAC guys. Now they got 3 vans, they got a mechanical contracting company, and they're making $3 million a year, and nobody's got any college debt, and they're all busting their butt, and they're making civilized life possible for the rest of us. I honestly believe we have Forrest Gumped our way into the situation that we're in right now, and I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but I'll say it again. If Donald Trump is successful in bringing manufacturing back, he's going to be facing the same challenge that Barack Obama did when he found out that just because you have a shovel-ready job doesn't mean you're going to fill it. There's a lot to unpack, there's a lot to think about, but the headline is this. Those 7.6 million open jobs are real. Most of them don't require a 4-year degree. Many of them are 6 figures or lead right to 6 figures. And this generation deserves to know the truth about the opportunities that are out there. If you share my level of agitation and you want to help, it's microworks.org. But more importantly, if you know of somebody, a son, a daughter, a friend of a friend, who could benefit from learning a skill that's in demand, we've got $2.5 million we'll be giving away this month. We do this every year. I've never come here before and I've never tried to make a big deal about it because frankly, I don't want to get over my skis and I don't like to raise funds that way. But it could be 25 million like that. And for the first time in my life, I used to spend my time telling crowds how difficult it was to give away $1 million in work ethic scholarships. Can I just do it one more time, the standing thing? Here's the thing about, okay, look. There's scholarships for everything. There's academic scholarships, there's athletic scholarships, there's artistic scholarships. We do work ethic scholarships because nobody is talking about the virtue of getting up early and staying late and taking a bite of the poop sandwich when it's your turn and paying your dues and climbing the ladder. Nobody talks about that. It's been out of favor for a long time. My foundation doesn't care too much about your GPA. I care about your attendance. You jump through hoops. I'm stingy with the money that I raise. You've got to provide references. You've got to write an essay. You've got to make a video. You've got to make a case for yourself. You have to sign the sweat pledge, which I wrote 12 years ago after a bottle of wine that basically talks about the importance of all these out-of-favor virtues, from gratitude to delayed gratification to a decent attitude. All that stuff is at the center of my foundation. So when we find a kid or a grown-up who wants to hit the reset button and sign on for this money, until now, I haven't been trying to help as many people as I can. I've been trying to help people who I know I can go back to and get their stories. That's what's been happening, and that's what's going to continue to happen, but we're about to turn a corner, and we have to turn, as Bobby Kennedy told me a year ago. He said, Mike Rowe, you should take MicroWorks and make it MacroWorks. And I thought that was clever and smart, and I never really thought about it before, but I'm thinking about it now.
Especially after our silent auction. Come on.
Especially after that silent auction. Come on. Anyway, that's...
No, stand up. I want to...
You want to stand up? Or...
Yeah, I'm not ranting, but what I want to say this is we got one big problem. The next person coming on the stage can deport us if we talk too long.
Oh, crap.
So we have to be really careful. Kristi Noem, you know, she's got a lot of power.
Yeah, but you know what? She owes me one. We're okay.
We're okay. I don't know if I'm okay. You might be okay.
I'm definitely okay.
Okay.
You're in terrible trouble.
But I want to offer you something on behalf of CPAC. You know, we rate 8,000 state legislators, governors, senators, congressmen. We want to use our rating system to put pressure on these state legislative chambers to make sure that, and this is a state issue, to make sure that education spending is going towards where the jobs are. So we want home ec, and we want, you know, like you said,
shop class.
I don't even know what to call it because they didn't even have it when I was there, but we need these back.
You need the muscular trades elevated and celebrated, and we need to make sure that the jobs that we're trying to fill are not seen as some sort of vocational consolation prize.
That's right.
These are paths to prosperity, and the success stories, and the number of small businesses in this country. I swear I'll get off the stage right now. I don't know, the number of small businesses in this country who were founded by men and women who mastered a skill that was in demand and then went to work. It's legion. All we're talking about is the future of the country. The only thing at stake is national security.
And I just saw about 100 arenas filled with people, many with red MAGA hats, who are the kind of people that our economy seems, they feel like we don't want them. And the fact is, we need them more than ever. We need them on the field, and we need them to get this economy humming again.
That's what Dirty Jobs was about. That's what MicroWorks is about. That's why I came. I'm so flattered that you had me. I feel like I took a selfie with half of you. Maybe we'll get the other half after this. But it's been a great 3 days. Thank you for having me.
Mike Rowe, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for your good work.
Anytime.
I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border and putting America first. Let me deliver a message from President Trump to the world. If you are considering entering America illegally, don't even think about it. Let me be clear. If you come to our country and you break our laws, we will hunt you down. Criminals are not welcome in the United States. For too long, weak leadership has left our borders wide open, flooding our communities with drugs, human trafficking, and violent criminals. Well, those days are over. Under President Trump, we are defending American families and restoring their safety. If you try to enter illegally, you will be caught, you will be removed, and you will never return. Follow the law, and you'll find opportunity. If you break it, you'll find consequences. Strong borders mean a stronger America. President Trump is making America safe again.
All right, everybody. Look who we have on stage with us at CPAC. Let me tell you, this is a great honor. I think one of the most powerful women in our U.S. government right now, Secretary Kristi Noem, our Secretary of Homeland Security. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So,
an honor to be with you.
Apparently, we were supposed to deport Mike Rowe and Matt Schlapp. So.
Yes, I have just issued a warrant for Mike Rowe.
Right, okay.
So
Be on alert,
Thank him for being here tonight, and we'll next see his face on a wanted poster.
Okay.
Too long.
So let me ask you this. That was one of the best ads. So powerful. Tell us about this multi-million-dollar ad that you have going on. Why was it important to send this message out to individuals who have no business being in our country?
Well, you know, it's interesting. After I was nominated to be the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, President Trump talked to me several times. We had several meetings during the transition talking about it. And he said to me one day, we had a meeting, I left his office, and then Natalie came chasing me down the hall, and she goes, the president wants to tell you something he forgot to visit with you about. So I came back into his office, and he said, Christy, do you know those ads that you did in South Dakota?
Oh,
and
yes,
I said,
yes,
sir. You mean my Freedom Works Here ads? And he said, yeah, those ones where those beautiful ads.
Those
those beautiful ads.
Beautiful.
You did about South Dakota. They had Mount Rushmore, all those things. He said, I want you to do those for the border.
Brilliant.
And I said, well, sir, I don't know how that works. You mean the ones where I was a plumber and where I was an electrician? And I don't know if I can do those for the border. And he said, no, I want you to do those for the border. And I want you to do those everywhere, not just in the United States, but I want them around the world. I want you to tell people not to come to this country if they're going to come here illegally. And I said, well, sir, we can do press conferences. You know, we can tell people what we're doing. And he said, nope, we're not going to let the media tell this story because the media will never tell the truth. We're going to do a marketing campaign to make sure the American people know the truth of what you're doing. And I said, well, sir, do you want to be in those ads? And he said, nope. I want you to do them.
No?
He said, no, I don't. I want you in the ads. He said, I want you in the ads and I want your face in the ads. But he said, but I want the first ad, I want you to thank me. So I want you to thank me for closing the border. And I said, yes, sir, I will thank you for closing the border. So if you notice in that ad, we thanked him for closing the border. And then, you know, there's strong language in those ads. Those ads talk about, we will hunt you down. And that if you come to this country, that you will not get the chance to return. If you leave voluntarily, you may have the opportunity to have the American dream. But if we have to come looking for you and hunt you down, then you have lost that chance. And I don't think there's ever been a secretary that has said that before, much less a president. And these ads are running not just in the United States, they're going to run in the Middle East. They're going to run in Central America. They're going to run throughout the world, letting the world know that America has a new leader.
I mean, because you're talking about over, individuals coming to our country illegally over 100 countries, 140 countries. So let me ask you this. That first week after you were confirmed, well, before we even go there, you got to give us a backstory, how President Trump said, okay, you're my pick for Homeland Security. Because we were, when we were all out there going, okay, what is Governor Kristi Noem, what is she going to be? Secretary of Ag, Secretary of Interior, and then it was Secretary of Homeland Security. Tell us that backstory.
No, it's kind of an interesting story because my husband and I had talked during, after the election, if we get asked to do something, what would you do?
Right.
And I said, well, people have mentioned, do you want to do agriculture? Would you be interested in interior? And my husband and I talked about it. And when you live in South Dakota, you live a pretty special life. And we've got kids and we've got grandchildren. We live on a ranch. I'm an outdoors person. And I said, listen, I'm not really interested in leaving the governorship in South Dakota unless I'm doing something that's significant.
Right.
And he said, well, what is significant to you? And I said, well, it would be the president's #1 priority. And he said, well, my husband said, well, what is that? And I said, well, it's the border and immigration. So it would be Homeland Security would be what I would need to ask for. And he said, okay, that is every dysfunctional agency in the federal government is in Homeland Security. And he said, well, that would be consistent because as long as I've been married to you, whatever it is, if there could be 3 choices, you always pick the hardest thing to do.
Right.
So he said, that makes sense that you would ask for that. And I said, well, nobody is even considering me for Homeland Security, so this will be a big surprise. So the first person I visited about it with was Howard Lutnick, who was facilitating a lot of things in the transition and asked me what I'd be interested in. He was shocked by that. And then one day, I mentioned it to President Trump when he called me on the phone and asked me, had a conversation. I said, sir, not only do you need to close the border and make sure that we're deporting people by the millions, which he has talked about and promised the American people, you need somebody that is tough enough to actually do it. This is not going to be a 6-month job. This is going to be a job to deport that many people and to add some integrity back to our federal laws. It's going to take a long time. And you need somebody who can message that, but who is actually strong enough to do it. And I couldn't think of anybody else that I knew of that would actually do what the president was saying he was going to do.
Right.
And I told the president, I said, when you talk about this, I also think it's extremely beneficial for you to have someone who's messaging this to the American people that is a mom.
Yeah.
That's a grandma that recognizes that there's a human side to this.
There's
as well.
human side to it, and it's public safety, because what do parents want to do? They want to protect their families, their children.
Yes, and this is about our country and adding safety back to our country and making sure that Americans are put first. And yes, we understand that there's people that will be impacted and families that will be impacted, and we're going to handle this in a way that America always does. We're going to do it with excellence, but we're going to do the right thing.
Right.
And we're going to make sure we follow through on what the president promised. So I think he was excited about that, but what was so interesting to me was one day Howard called me and he said, can you get to Mar-a-Lago by 2 o'clock this afternoon? And I said...
Wait, from South Dakota?
Yeah, I said...
That's
okay,
a little
so I'm
challenging.
in South Dakota, and that's impossible.
Right.
So I said, I don't know if I can. And I said, I'll do anything I can. He said, well, I'm going to try to fit you into the president's schedule, but I'm not sure, if I can, but if there's an extra moment, I want to put you in front of him today. I broke my back to get there. Like, I took every flight possible and figured it out. Walked in the door of Mar-a-Lago at 4:30 in the afternoon, 2.5 hours late, and Howard walked out and he said, the president just left. And I said, you're kidding me. He said, no. And I said, all right. And he said, well, do you want to come have dinner with me tonight and my son? And I said, sure, I can do that. So went to dinner with Howard and his son. We're sitting there talking, and Howard's phone rings. Meanwhile, Howard shows me where they're doing interviews for cabinet positions. He walked me into a room that was a long table with dozens of TV screens and a long table with a chair sitting at the end. And he said, this is where people who get interviewed sit. This table is filled with national security experts, people that will interview you. They will be Zooming in from all over the country and the world.
No pressure.
People who understand Homeland Security, all the agencies, and we will interview you and ask you questions for... I said, well, how long does that take? And he said, probably about an hour and a half, or take 2 hours, or if you're really bad, it could take 10 minutes. So that was the first time I started to get nervous, because I had not prepared for something like that.
Right.
We did this. He showed me all of that. Then we left and went to dinner. We're sitting at dinner, and Howard's phone rings. And I hear Howard say, yes, Mr. President. Yes, I like her, too. Is that what you want to do? Is that okay? Yes, sir. I think she'd be fantastic. Okay, well then go ahead and do that. And he hangs up the phone. And I'm sorry, I'm going to use some colorful language here, but Howard turns to me and he said, "What the fuck just happened?" and looked at me like he was mad. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "The president just called me and said he's going to make you the Homeland Security Secretary." And I said. So he repeated his question. He said, "What the F just happened?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he was, because for Howard, he follows this process. Everybody gets interviewed. This is how we do things. And the president had just hijacked it. And my phone rang like 30 seconds later, and it was the president. And he said, "Christy, I'm wondering if you would be interested in being my Homeland Security Secretary. Would you be willing to do that?" And I said, "Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, I'll do a very good job." He said, "Okay, I'm excited. Thank you." We had a nice conversation, hung up, and Howard stood up and congratulated me and hugged me, and all of that was done. And we talked, but then when we left that evening, I got back to my hotel room and I called my husband and I said, "Well, this was weird how all this just happened because, and the president said on the phone, he said, 'Where are you tonight?' I said, 'I'm in Palm Beach.' He goes, 'You're in Palm Beach? What are you doing in Palm Beach?' And I said, 'Well, Howard called me to come down here.' And he said, 'Howard called you to come to Palm Beach?' And he said, 'Well, where are you now?' I said, 'I'm having dinner with Howard.' And he goes, 'Put me on the phone with Howard.' So I put the phone. He said to Howard, 'Why are you having dinner with Kristi Noem?' And Howard said, 'Well, you finally picked a good-looking cabinet secretary, so I'm not a dummy. I me and my son took her out for dinner. But what I told my husband that night on the phone is I said, here's what was interesting about that experience for me was that I feel like God facilitated that whole day because I went to Mar-a-Lago and I had to see what every other cabinet secretary had to go through to get a position. I had to see how they were interrogated, how they had to be prepared for their position that they were going to be taking on and everything. And then God said, but I'm not going to make you do that. It almost felt to me like it was God confirming to me how strong he had placed on my heart that this was the job I was supposed to have. He wanted me to know what was required of everybody, but I'm not going to make you do that. This is something that you're going to do because I have the confidence you can do it. And the president had the confidence to give it to me. So it was a very special day for me.
Amazing. So I loved it. The first week after you were confirmed, you're dressed up so cool, going up, busting up the illegal aliens up in New York, then heading down to the border while let's see, who is that secretary? Oh, Alejandro Mayorkas. You know Alejandro Mayorkas? The guy who sat behind his desk that I don't think even barely visited the border? Yeah, loser. So here's the deal. You've got Secretary Noem. She goes out nonstop. Tell us about what you saw as you were going to New York when you went to the border. Tell us what you saw on the ground.
Well, I don't believe I can really know what my agencies are doing unless what I know what the people on the front lines are doing and what they go through every day. And frankly, for the agencies in Border Patrol and in ICE, TSA, all these different agencies, I have FEMA, we have a huge recruitment issue, especially in Border Patrol and ICE. The morale is at the lowest it probably had ever been because you had people that signed up for a job that weren't being allowed the last 4 years to do their jobs.
Right.
So for me to go there and spend time with them was important. But the morning that we went to New York City, I left my apartment at 1:30 in the morning, went to the airport, got on a flight, got to New York City. We had a briefing at 3 o'clock with about the 75 to 100 enforcement officers that were going to go out and run ops that morning. And these were different agencies partnering, the DEA, ATF, ICE, HSI. And we were going out and we had warrants on quite a few people, but they were very dangerous. People that had warrants for murder, assault, drug, and human trafficking. And we're going to be going out. And the reason that we were going out at night was because that's when people were off the streets. It would be safe situations.
Right.
They would be at home. And we'd be able to go sweep them up and take them in and be able to process them and get them incarcerated. So what was interesting to me was, we got there and immediately the HSI officer said, do you want to get in the Bearcat with us to go do this operation? I said, absolutely. Like, yes, I do. And they said, and then I have Secret Service detail. And they said, no, she's not. And I go, yeah, yes, I am. They said, no, we recommend, ma'am, that you not get in there because that's just not safe. And so when they were visiting with somebody else, I got in the Bearcat with the HSI guys and got in the front, and we went out to do the op. But what was interesting to me is how professional these individuals are and how much they were working to get these bad people out of these apartments that were filled with people who were trafficking drugs and human beings. We were in the Bronx. They were operating with professionalism. I had spent probably several hours the night before on the phone with the mayor of New York City, with NYPD, trying to get them to facilitate some backup for us.
Right.
And a lot of phone calls talking to people that, frankly, they said they'd never heard from the Secretary of Homeland Security before, much less did they dream they would have a secretary helping to coordinate the safety of law enforcement officers. But this is what I think everybody needs to know, is that as those ops were happening, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and we're continuing to pull these guys in. They're members of TDA. The one guy we pulled in was one of the ringleaders that you saw on the videos coming out of Aurora, Colorado. So that was one of the guys that we went and got, and he had just tried to purchase grenades that week and a gun buy. And I don't have any idea why you would need grenades in the United States of America.
Right.
And this individual came out of an apartment building, and as we're bringing him out, people walking by on the streets were walking by me and walking by our law enforcement officials and saying, thank you so much. And these community members, whatever you hear on the news or ever how much time CNN or MSNBC or the liars on the network TVs make it sound like we're going after these poor innocent individuals, the people who have to live in the communities with these individuals, they are walking their children to school and they're walking by us and saying, thank you. Thank you for being here and for doing this and getting these bad dudes off our streets.
And you know what was so pathetic, Madam Secretary? That the media was more concerned about what you were wearing than what you were doing.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
We were so busy the first few days, I didn't realize people were making fun of me until several days later.
You know what it is?
I think it
jealous of you.
Well,
for sure.
I gotta tell you, when you're hanging out with guys with big guns and vests and stuff, it's not a bad day. That's kind of right up my alley. But the other thing that was important to me is they would, like Border Patrol gave me their hat and their coat, and they wanted me to wear it and be proud of them.
Yes.
So when I wear their hats and their coats, and of course the vest was there for safety reasons, they know that I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of the job that they're doing. And I'll tell you, recruitment for Border Patrol is through the roof in the last 30 days. People want to be Border Patrol agents now. That's a complete change under this administration.
Truly amazing. You've also got DOGE basically coming into the Department of Homeland Security. What are you seeing there? What are you looking to eliminate? What are you looking to fix? What are you looking to innovate in the Homeland Security Department?
Well, I've placed my order for chainsaws.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay. Wait, we might be able to find one around here. I don't know.
I gotta tell you, there's something powerful. If you don't own a chainsaw, go buy one, first of all. I'll never forget when I got my first chainsaw. I kind of just walked around the ranch and thought, what can I cut now? So if you haven't had one, they really are fantastic. But the DOGE guys have been extremely powerful. I can't tell you how thankful I am for them every day, because they're going in and digging out not just wasteful spending, but also wasteful positions that don't need to be there anymore. A lot of times over the years, people have looked to the federal government to be the answer to their problems. And the DOGE guys are helping us teach the American people that the federal government is not the answer.
Yeah.
That the federal government many times is not the answer to the problems that they have. We're going back to what I want to add is an element of education in this country about our founders envisioned exactly what the DOGE guys are doing. They envisioned that the federal government would not be powerful. They would not be the source of authority and governance and founding, that it would be the states and the local entities that would do that. And so when they come forward with an idea in Homeland Security, I love it because they have had the time to root out something we shouldn't be doing. And I look back at exactly what Reaganism was, what federalism was, and show that they're giving me an opportunity to return our country back to that. In fact, when the CBP One app, do you guys remember the conversation about the CBP One app that Biden had set up that facilitated allowing people to come into our country illegally? Well, we shut that down on day one and didn't want it to be utilized anymore. But we needed some kind of a app to be established because we are in control of all the border, not just the border, but the customs and trade that goes through the country. So anything that comes through a port or a package or comes through the country, I'm responsible for.
Right.
And so typically, we need an app that we can use for offshore shipping containers that are coming in, that they can fill out the paperwork before they hit the port so we can be efficient. And in talking to individuals within the federal government, they said, you know what? We can build that app for you. We can build that technology for you. Just give us 4 months and we'll have that done. And so I called the DOGE guys, called Kyle, who's assigned to the Department of Homeland Security, and he said, we can have that up in 24 hours. I'm like, are you kidding me? You are fantastic.
Yes.
So now we have CBP One or CBP Go, which is the app that we use for trade, has nothing to do and doesn't facilitate any kind of asylum or illegal entry into the country. It helps us make sure that we're able to do trade and make sure that we're collecting the tariffs that President Trump talks about so much and doing it in a way with an app that the DOGE guys helped us develop in 24 hours and didn't have to wait 4 months for it to get done.
So I do want to ask you this. At CPAC, we have our CPAC Center for Combating Human Trafficking. This is a big issue for many of our investors, the people who really understand this horrific humanitarian crisis that we've seen. I know for you, I mean, your children, your grandchildren, I mean, it is heart-wrenching to hear these stories, to hear about the missing children, to hear about the incompetence of the former administration that have led to so many children that we have no idea where they are. Give us an update on that situation.
Yeah, so we have, what cartels were doing was not only were they trafficking individuals, but they were recycling children in order to facilitate it. To cross the border, they would bring a child with them, knowing the Biden administration would let the entire group into the country then and release them immediately on parole if they had a child with them. And then those cartel members would send the same child back over the border back south and bring them through with another group. And because the Biden administration had stopped doing any kind of DNA testing in individuals, they were able to utilize that. We immediately required DNA testing again.
Perfect.
And the number one thing that happens so often is that these families that come across aren't families at all. They're individuals who are using these children to get across the border and trafficking them and handing them off to someone else into this country to abuse them. And the Office of Refugee Resettlement is one of the biggest abusers of putting people in positions and facilitating trafficking and where we put these people in supposed safe homes that we've been able to stop just through DNA samples of children and tracking to make sure they belong with the people that they belong with, and then when they're not, to make sure that we're taking them out and getting them into safe situations, returning them back to their families. And that's the heart side of this that nobody talks about with our president. We have a biggest president. I mean, he's the biggest badass we've ever had, right? As far as a president that this country's ever seen, that the world has ever seen. And now he's come into this presidency with the confidence and to go in and to do things and do them right and to make sure that he has a team around him that will go to the mat every single time too. But if you watch him, he's doing it, and he's doing it for the next generation and for our kids.
Yes.
And he's doing it for the children of the world and making sure we're doing these policies that will make sure that trafficking is addressed and partnering with our states and our attorney generals to make sure that it's addressed as well.
And we look forward to partnering with you as well. I do want to wrap up with this one question. You just had a grandbaby 2 weeks ago.
I did.
What's her name?
Her name is Noah Lynn, and Noah means peace and rest. And so that is exactly what I think our country needs to embrace right now, is that we're in this period of, yes, thank you. That's my 4th grandbaby. Yes, so I've got 3 girls and a boy right now, and they're all under the age of 4. But Noah Lynn is my middle name, so I'm kind of excited about the fact that I've got a little girl in the family that's carrying on my middle name too. But we're so excited. This is my middle daughter, Kennedy, that had her first grandbaby, and they're doing really well. So I was pretty thankful I got to be there when she was born and stick around for a few days and make sure that Grandma was going to be her best friend.
Amazing. I do want to say last thoughts here for our CPAC audience as you're really taking on this job, this very, very tough job. And we, of course, are praying for you and your ability to get it done. And I know you're going to be so successful in this. But tell us just final thoughts for our audience.
You know, what I would say is everything in your life, you're formed by the people you spend time with. So growing up, I spent every day with my dad. He was my best friend. So people ask me, you know, why I do what I do. And it is because my dad taught me that when I die, I should at least be able to look back and say, I lived a life of significance, that it mattered. So I had kind of a crazy dad. He was a cowboy. So he was the one that woke us up every day. I think I've probably said it to the CPAC crowd before. Every day by yelling up the stairs, get up. More people die in bed than anywhere else. So I always wondered if that was true, but it maybe is. So it's a good reason to get out of bed in the morning. But he also sent us out the door every day as kids saying, drive fast and take chances. But
I like that.
Again, that's strange for a father to recommend. But what it has taught me is I'm I'm not a feminist. I was raised by a dad who made us strong as girls, and I was raised in a family where girls could do anything that boys could do. But I also think that, you know, one of the books that impacted my life the most was a book that talked about how we talk to our children and how the words that we say to our children matter, and it forms who they are when they grow up. And it talked about how even our fairy tales many times are written in a way to define roles. And it talked about the fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood. How even in Little Red Riding Hood, if you remember the story, it was she was going to Grandma's house, and if she stayed on the path, she would be safe. But it was off the path where all the risks were, and the danger was, and the wolf, and that if you stayed on the path, you'd be fine. And really the message of the fairy tale was stay on the path and don't take risks. And the message of that fairy tale was, if you were a little girl, many times to get to Grandma's house safely, right? But one of the things that that book and the message that it had was that they wished every little girl would grow up knowing that they were never Little Miss Riding Hood, that they were always the wolf. And that's what I think we need to think about right now in this country, is we should not wake up every day with a victim mentality, a defeatist mentality, that we have these huge challenges in front of us. Our president doesn't. Our president wakes up every day knowing he's the greatest president of all time, right? He knows that. And we should wake up with the confidence that we don't have to live in fear of straying off the path. We should look for opportunities to get off the path, because every opportunity in my life has come to me because I've taken a risk, because I've been willing to put myself out there and do something different. And I'll be the wolf. I'll be the wolf if I need to. I'll be the one out there that is making sure that we have those opportunities and those challenges and placing them in front of other people so that they really go after the biggest opportunities that are out there. And that I hope we pass that on to our kids and our grandkids. We are saving this country for a reason.
That's right.
We are saving it for our kids and our grandkids. So that's why I do my job, and I hope that's why you're here tonight. I know that's why Matt and Mercedes do what they do. They don't do this for themselves or so you can come and have a fun few days with people. They're doing it because we don't want people to forget what America's about.
Amen.
America was created by individuals who made huge sacrifices for us, and we shouldn't lose it on our watch. Remember our history, gather together, and then go out and fight and make sure that we're taking charge of those opportunities that are in front of us. So God bless you for what you do and letting me come and visit with you.
Oh,
it's
how
been wonderful.
Incredible, Madam Secretary Kristi Noem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Hopefully I didn't talk too long.
You were awesome. They loved it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 2025 Reagan Dinner. Thank you for coming. And as a reminder, security will open tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.